Today I'd like to talk about the 7 losses of the spouse. I think that for addicts to understand, why is your spouse so grieved with this and why they can't get over it. And I know it's very difficult for you to watch them in pain. However, it doesn't help to tell them to get over it. It doesn't help to say, how long are you going to keep going over this stuff? If you as the addict don't understand what they're going through, then you don't want them to get through it quicker. And so part of this thing is to realize that I've got 7 losses here. There's probably many, many more. When I first did the first lecture, there was like 15 or 16. So there's a lot of losses out there that spouses go through when they suddenly discover they're married to an addict, or they progressively learn that they're married to an addict. I think that it's difficult. Now sometimes, with alcoholism and drug addiction, that disease is progressive and such, and maybe it's more open and they notice it. One thing that's not always easy though is when it involves sexual addiction. There's a lot of times that's hidden until somehow or another it gets exposed, and then suddenly the spouse goes through this tremendous grieving process. And so for them to understand, but also for you to understand their losses, what have they lost? So I'm going to cover that today and just kind of talk about, these are the many things that they're grieving, and not all the things, because there'll be more up there that they could even put up, say, well, I'm grieving the loss of this too. Now, one of them would be the loss of identity and specialness. There was a day when you got engaged and you said, would you marry me? And to them they heard, I am choosing you above all others to be my partner, my companion, the only one that matters to me in all the world. And so you are unique, you are special. And so suddenly when they find out that they're married to an addict, there's been unfaithfulness, or you've got an addiction that you've been acting out, then suddenly they realize that, well, you're not who I thought I had married. I am not in a marriage that I thought I had. Where have I been in the last 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years if all this has been going on? And then suddenly I don't even feel like I am the person that I thought I was. Where before I was happy and congenial and the life of the party and enjoyed life and was full of life. And today I'm depressed, and I'm angry, and I'm detached from my children, and I'm distracted with housework or work at wherever I am. And so, my life is spiraling. I don't even know who I am anymore. I suddenly realized that they're no longer special or unique, that they're expendable, they're disposable, they're exchangeable, they're not special. They're anything but. And so suddenly their world collapses, and they get depressed, they're angry, they're confused, they're frustrated, they don't trust anything anymore. They've lost it all. Then there's the loss of sense of order and justice. For some that are in the religious context, it's like, they've saved themselves for marriage, and they felt like they were going to be in the ministry, or they're going to do some great things, and they had saved themselves for a spouse, that they suddenly realized that he or she never saved themselves, and that life is not this way. That they had thought in some way there was this formula that if I do X, God's going to do Y, and I'm going to get Z. And then all of a sudden they wake up and they have anything but Z. They realize that I did X and I don't have Z, so God didn't do Y. And so it's like the formulas don't work. The sense of order and justice in this universe is suddenly falling apart. They said, I've tried so hard to do it right, to be a godly spouse and to pursue this, and it's like, and all of a sudden my world has collapsed around me, and what I thought I lived and what I thought I had was not. It's all been a sham. And so it leaves them to say that if they're high power, if God did this, if they were doing X, then God didn't do Y. Now, that could be for several reasons, and now they're swirling in their own head, and their shame, and their sorrow, and their grief, and their anger. And so they're saying, well, God didn't because He couldn't. Maybe He didn't care. Maybe it didn't matter to Him. So there's external chaos. Then there's the internal chaos that goes and says, maybe I'm not worthy. Maybe I didn't have enough faith. Maybe there was something wrong with me. I didn't measure up, so I don't deserve it. And I can't do it any harder, so I'm lost. I'm lost. Then there's a loss of self-respect. There's times when they go back and they begin to realize that they've groveled and begged for somebody to show up at the short place, somebody to be there for them, to give them attention, maybe even just to be sexual with them or whatever else, and never understanding, feeling icky about themselves when they were asked to do certain things sexually or to put up the covering for the alcoholic or covering for the addict, the drug addict. And they look back on it and they look at the mirror and they say, I don't even like you anymore. They feel disgusted with their behaviors and their choices. They've groveled and they've tried to keep a relationship where someone was more interested in their drugs or their alcohol or their sexual acting out than them. And they feel like they've groveled. And they feel disgust with themselves. So they've definitely lost a sense of self-respect. Then there's a loss of control of mind and body. The mind begins to spin and they began to run through tapes of audio tapes and videotapes of why didn't I see this, or why didn't I stop this, or why did I choose this, or why did I get help then, or how did I get here, or why didn't I see? And it's like their mind just will spin. Sometimes they'll wake up at night and their minds won't shut off and they can stay up all night. They do this for several nights in a row, and after a while they get sleep deprived. Now they're certifiably crazy. I mean, they're nuts. They can't think through anything. They're doing half task all day long. They work themselves to the bone and never get anywhere. And so they can't stay on track. They can't remember things. They just kind of they get fogged up. Not only that, but their body, I mean, they're constantly, compulsively pushing for certain things. Whether they're running or they're working or they're trying to outrun this emotion that's about to run them over. Then there's a loss of connection. Most spouses hide their shame because they see that somehow or another this has happened because of them. So they hide the alcoholic's drinking. They hide the drug addict's use. They hide the sexual addicts acting out. And so they don't reach out. Or those that have reached out and not gotten help. Maybe they've gone to a priest or a pastor or some chaplain or somebody, I need help, and didn't get it. And so they withdraw. They don't talk to friends. They carry this shame and embarrassment. Somehow this message is about them. And so they go through this an immense loneliness and darkness. They can be in a crowded room in their church or Sunday school or work or other places and never say a peep and be lonely because they've lost it. Maybe the word's gotten out and now other people out in the community don't know how to deal with this. Maybe I've gone through a divorce and it's like now they don't even have anybody. Now their friends are all gone. I mean, they just kind of like, I don't know how to deal with you. You are our friends as a couple and now you're not a couple. I don't know how to connect with you. Or maybe they don't know what to do, so they just disappear. I don't know. A lot of reasons out there, but there's this sudden loss of connection and immense loneliness that overtakes them. And they grieve in this. Then there's a loss of faith. I mean, they feel like that they have done everything God wanted them to do. They pursued everything they thought they could pursue. They tried to be good enough. And still this happened. So they look at themselves and they say, I've prayed and I've asked God and there is no relief. I'm still suffering and in pain. I don't even think God cares anymore. Maybe they've gone to their pastor, a priest, somebody in their church, an elder, and they've not gotten any help or understanding or connection. And so there's no answers anymore. I'm not even sure God cares. And they're deep into their depression and sadness and loneliness. So they lose some of that. Then the last one is that some of them lose a purpose. Maybe a purpose in the marriage, or worse yet, a purpose in life. They look at themselves and see that they weren't enough for you, their partner and spouse in life. They're dropping the ball with the children and they're snapping at them and they're not being themselves with them, and they feel like they're failing as a mother as well as a spouse, or a father as well as a spouse. So they lose the will to live. Some have chosen or thought about homicide. Very few of I know of that have ever done it, but they'd like to pinch your head off. Then there's some that have considered suicide. There are those that I've talked to in my practice and in the workshops that said, yes, I've thought a lot about that bridge abruptment or those pills, but I can't, I got the children. Then there are others that have sought or desired God aside. God, just take me on. I can't seem to get it right down here. And I've been in hell long enough. Take me on. I've done my bit in purgatory. Take me to heaven. Maybe a rapture this morning would be a good thing to do. Just get me on out of here. I'm hurting down here. I don't want to be here anymore. Take me. A loss of sense and purpose, a will to live and to move on. And so, yes, they're struggling. And then many more things that I've not mentioned here. See, this is all news to most spouses. The information that you've lived with all these years has not been a surprise to you. You knew. You've been sad a long time. They haven't. I ask you, I implore you, I challenge you to be understanding of your partners and spouses. I challenge you with your children too. I mean, they're grieving a loss. Hey, be gentle with them. They're going through all kinds of emotions that they're being almost drowned with. Be understanding as they go through the grief process, as they go through, and we'll cover that. I'll go through grief here next week. We'll cover that. And how that's a process and how people work through this. And it takes time. It takes time. Be patient. Be patient. Thank you.